Dear listeners, welcoming you all back for another thought provoking episode of Immunology for Everyone podcast by SKA. I say thought provoking as this one is supposed to be an eye opener and an appeal to each one of us to seriously address this issue with all responsibility. As India faces a rising problem, we stand at the doors of times when desperate measures are not only deemed necessary but are the only way to address survival ahead. Thinking not only about ourselves but our little ones growing up is a matter of major concern. So let's catch up with the details here with SKA to understand what we're dealing with and further set foot towards redeeming ourselves of this self created, life endangering problem of declining air quality. Grasp as much as you can because eye openers are the only way ahead. Keep listening, subscribing, and sharing with your friends. Over to your host and guide, SKA.
Hello, my friends. Welcome back to Immunology for Everyone. Recently, we are listening to the news of air quality being of severe category in many parts of the world, especially in the northern states of India. The news flash indicates a red alert. So, what does that mean to a normal citizen living in these geographical areas? It means that the level of suspended particle material in the air is so high that every one of us is breathing in that material knowingly or unknowingly. But one should understand that when we are breathing in the polluted air, it is like, you know, continuously smoking. And you know that smoking is so hazardous to our health. I came across a post recently, which you might have also seen. It equalizes the number of cigarettes one may be smoking if based in different cities of India, based on the air quality index of that city. And surprisingly, it shows that people living in Delhi are smoking close to 40 cigarettes a day. So one should know the adverse effects of this air pollution, which is the result of smoke all around coming not only from the vehicles and industry emissions, but also the villages where you can find that stubble being burnt by in the fields by the farmers without knowing how much damage this smoke is doing to the people and livestock which are living around them, including their families. And that is why I think we need to understand more about the adverse effects of air pollution than just what we know already. So today, I decided to discuss the effects of air pollution, not only in terms of the appearance of some acute symptoms of allergy in general, but also in terms of how adversely it may affect our body, including the immune system in long run. So now you already know that our immune system is tuned to get activated whenever there is any exposure with a pathogen. And on activation, it produces certain kinds of chemicals and cells are activated, which protect us from the infection as it tries to get rid of the pathogen. But you must realize that persistently activated immune system can cause a number of very dangerous disorders which can even be fatal at times. So it is absolutely important to have a well functional but properly regulated immune system to remain healthy in a healthy state. So, in order to understand how the air pollution can affect our immune system or maybe other systems, first of all, we need to understand how do we define the air pollution in scientific terms. In scientifically speaking, air pollution can be defined broadly as the introduction of chemicals, particulate material, and biological material into the atmosphere. They may be these materials may cause harm or discomfort to the humans and other living organisms, or also cause the damage to the environment. So air pollutants, uh, which are basically causing this all pollution, may be categorized as either primary air pollutants, which are directly emitted into the atmosphere by the vehicles, by the industry, by biomass burning, or the secondary pollutants, which are formed in the atmosphere from the oxidation and transformation of the primary pollutants. So air pollution can derive from both the indoor as well as outdoor sources, while the outdoor pollutants primarily come from the vehicles, industry, construction material, biomass burning. The indoor pollutant is produced first by the penetration of the outdoor pollutants, and also other activities which are conducted indoor, such as the cooking, cooling, heating, air conditioners and air warmers we use in our houses, and also by the building products. But today we will try to focus on outdoor pollution because of the fact that the World Health Organization has indicated that majority of the population worldwide is exposed to air containing higher levels of pollutants than the acceptable limits. And it is also clear that the air pollution exposure represents an environmental risk for not only human health but also entire livestock, including the plants and animals. The atmospheric pollutants typically include particulate material, as we all know, along with some of the toxic gases which are a part of these emissions, like the ozone, nitrogen oxide, polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons, sulfur dioxide, carbon monoxide, benzene, and several metals such as manganese, arsenic, cadmium, lead, mercury, nickel, aluminum, and vanadium, which are generated by the vehicular traffic, industrial emissions, and biomass burning. So, the particle material component of the air pollution is characterized by normally the size and aerodynamic properties of the particles which are suspended in the air. There are coarse particles which have a aerodynamic diameter of 2.5 to 10 micrometer, and these are generally referred to as PM10. These are a bit heavier, and they sometimes get suspended in the air because of the foggy conditions, because of the cold conditions, but generally they settle down. But then comes the fine material, which is having the size of less than 2.5 micrometer, and they are termed as PM 2.5. And you must have seen that most of the referrals are about PM 2.5 when they are talking about atmospheric pollution. And then there are certain ultra-fine particles, which are called the ultra-fine particulate material, and it has a size which is less than even zero point 0.1 micrometer. And these are also called the nano-sized particulate material and termed as PM 0.1. And this has become more important because recently there has been a dramatic increase in the prevalence of non-communicable diseases such as cardiovascular diseases, metabolic diseases, cancer, chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, inflammatory bowel disease, and allergic diseases, because these are the diseases which are not contagious in nature, because they are not caused because of any infection but because of the um, because of other reasons. And although the air quality index levels are not legally binding standards, but these levels nevertheless represent an evidence informed tool which can be used to monitor the level of air pollution. And recent studies and research programs consistently show that harmful health effects induced by air pollution can be observed also in very low concentrations levels of these particulate material, with no observable thresholds below which the exposure can be considered as safe. But different countries, they have different standards, and air quality values which are below 100 are generally considered as satisfactory. But air quality values, when they go above 100, the air quality is considered to be unhealthy at first. For a certain group of people who have the comorbidities, or they are aged people and very young people. But then once the levels they go a little higher, more than that, then the air quality values become hazardous for almost everyone who are living in that atmosphere. And we are now well aware that many places in India, especially in the northern states, including the national capital area of New Delhi in India, have air quality index beyond 400 mark, which is considered severely dangerous. So now let's talk about how the air pollutants they affect our systems. Uh, Let us see that the route of exposure to air pollutants is mainly through inhalation, ingestion, and also the skin contact. So therefore these systems can be affected more than any other all other systems. So air pollutants can affect different like immune cells, such as the macrophages, which are also called the particle clearing macrophages, because macrophages by nature are the phagocytic cells, and the phagocytose or engulf anything, including infectious material or even the inert material like the particulate material. And once that is engulfed, it's macrophages try to degrade it. But sometimes the particulate material is not degradable, so it keep packing in the macrophages. In fact, there are reports where people have done this kind of research and shown that in the lungs of those people who are living in high polluted areas, the macrophages are generally packed with black, particulate material. And these macrophages, they become non-functional because they have so much of particles inside them, and that's how they are not able to tackle with the infections. And then there are other cells like inflammatory neutrophils, dendritic cells, which are dendritic cells are the ones who orchestrate the adaptive immune responses, and then the lymphocytes which get activated and start producing a lot of cytokines. So it emerges that the air pollutants have the capacity to stimulate pro-inflammatory immune responses across multiple classes of immune cells, as seen in allergy and asthma, and that dysregulates the antiviral and anti-cancer immune responses. And then the suspended particulate material is one of the most common air pollutants associated with increased risk of respiratory symptoms. Uh, in particular, the PM 2.5 and PM 0.1, which is the ultrafine particulate material, that are effectively respirable, and they go inside, and they have the potential to reach the alveoli in the lungs, and may negatively influence the lung activity. And studies conducted in various occupational workplaces that suggested that particulate material could impact lung functions, with sufficient evidence that the exposure to particulate material may cause lung cancer. And an increase in the protein concentration with an excess of reactive substances like the reactive oxygen species production in lung has been shown to be associated with exposure to ultrafine particulate material that can lead to elevated levels of oxidatively damaged DNA, and that may be the cause of even cancer. So, although it has been seen that in developed countries there is a common trend of decline in the pollutant levels, yet in low and middle income nations like India and China, the situation is a little bit varied. So in India and China, where the air pollution levels have been rising with exposure, overcoming the safety standards, but there are nations like Mexico, which also come under the category of low and middle income nations. The pollution levels have been declining also. So there is a positive as well as negative news. So these global issues have increased the amount of research which is facilitated by WHO and many other global health agencies. And they have tried to conduct research in this direction, mainly to dissect the mechanisms by which these air pollutants can exert their toxicity. So among these, majority of the research has been focused on the effects on general health status of the individuals. And there are only few of these studies which have investigated the effects on immune system, which is also of great relevance, and we need to concentrate on that as well. So besides affecting the lungs and being a risk factor for non-communicable diseases, there are epidemiological studies which have raised the concern about potential impact of air pollution on the central nervous system also, which includes the decreased cognitive functions in children, adults, and elderly, and neurodevelopmental diseases, depressive symptoms, olfactory dysfunctions, auditory deficits, and other adverse neuropsychological effects have been reported because of exposure to air pollution. And then, WHO, International Agency for Research on Cancer, has conducted and shown that the outdoor air pollution containing hazardous chemicals is carcinogenic to humans. And epidemiological data indicates that the particulate material component of air pollution most closely associates with the increased incidence of cancer, especially the lung cancer. And in this context, the time window of exposure is of great relevance. And in fact, during the lifespan of an individual, some periods like early childhood and the old age are more susceptible to air pollution, possibly that result in more severe outcomes. And in this context, the European Environment Agency has suggested that exposure to air pollutants in early life can significantly affect the childhood development and could also trigger diseases uh, later in their life. And it has also been reported that during pregnancy, in utero exposure to air pollutants enhances the adverse defects, such as the reduced fetal growth, preterm birth, and spontaneous abortions. So it is, however, very alarming that all environmental exposures from in utero to adult life may lead to epigenetic changes and the level of DNA methylation, which are basically connected with the development of cancer. And so the WHO further reports that the exposure to polluted air may lead to many more adverse health effects, such as premature mortality and morbidity. While the premature mortality reflects the reduction in the life expectancy owing to premature death as a result of exposure to air pollution, if a country's life expectancy is about 70 years, then many people they die prematurely, maybe at the earlier age. And then the morbidity, it relates to the occurrence of illness and years of life lived with the disease or disability, which range from subclinical effects and symptoms like inflammation to chronic conditions that may require hospitalization. So, a person's quality of life is also adversely affected, and that's how the the air pollution can influence the health and life of all the individuals who are exposed to air pollution. And we must realize that even very less effects might have considerable public health implications, because air pollution affects a large population, which can impose a tremendous impact on the economy of a country in general. Now, besides inhalation and ingestion, the other major route, as I told you, is the by which a chemical can cross the human body is the uptake that involves the skin absorption. And air contaminants can bind and permeate the epidermal barrier and may enter into the systemic circulation. And you know that skin actually protects us. It's an anatomical barrier to many infectious agents, and but then that is breached by the particulate material. In their passage through epidermis, they can be metabolized, which give rise to reactive metabolites. And the structural and functional integrity of the epidermis may be directly damaged or impaired through indirect phenomena, including the inflammation. So, the persistent state of inflammation, which is created because of the absorption of these particulate material of the ultrafine, quality, it is associated with to air pollution as a fundamental role in the pathogenesis of both metabolic as well as immune mediated diseases, causing primarily skin aging, allergic contact dermatitis, atopic dermatitis, psoriasis, acne, and skin cancer. So, therefore, the lung and the skin are the two mostly involved systems due to the primary route of exposure of air pollution. So, in summary, the air pollutants play mainly a pro-inflammatory role that could include direct oxidative effects. Some variability of these effects have been shown among different exhausts and particles, suggesting that distinct physicochemical properties could arise from different materials which are generated and collected in specific conditions. Besides, the epigenetic mechanisms may contribute to inflammation, inflammatory reactions, and lung injury, such as asthma and DNA methylation. So, guys, what are the highlights of today's discussion? We discussed that air pollutants can perturb antimicrobial and regulatory immune responses. Pollutants trigger inflammatory cytokine release from the epithelium and macrophages, and also enhance the Th2 and Th17 responses, while suppressing the protective responses like Th1 and NK cell activity. So, consistent with the effects on immunology, pollution is clinically associated with most of the respiratory disorders. And astonishingly, the air pollution is the most abundant cause of approximately one third of premature deaths in any country where the air pollution levels are very high. And the most sensitive time window, which is very very sensitive to air pollution, are pregnancy, infancy, childhood, and the old age. So once we know all this, we all need to understand that besides the efforts made by the governments and health authorities, each one of us as individuals have to contribute in one way or the other so as to reduce the carbon footprint. You can think of whatever ways you can contribute in order to manage the air pollution. And so I need to close here today. Thank you so much for joining today. Keep listening and do send me your comments and suggestions in the comment box. So goodbye for now, and take care.